Cimoooooooo! What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today I'm bringing to you an updated meta-analysis for the June 2019 format. We are in the middle of one of the craziest WCQ and national seasons of all time, just based on the sheer quantity of participants at these events. People are loving playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. We're breaking attendance numbers left and right, and even though some things have remained constant, there is still an ever-evolving metagame here, and I don't necessarily think the format is solved by any stretch of the imagination, because last weekend we had the South American WCQ, and several other nationals, including the Italian national, which was rather large, and we still have the North American WCQ coming up this weekend, which I will be attending, so I hope to see you there, as well as the European WCQ following the weekend after. So I want to make sure you guys are up to date on all the changes, so that's why I wanted to bring you this video today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. I want to kick things off with the top 32 breakdown for the South American WCQ, and as we've come to expect, we have Salamangreat still taking up the most top cut slots of the entire event. Obviously, it was probably the most represented deck as well, but Salamangreat took up 10 of the top 32 slots, followed shortly behind by Orcust at 7, then I believe it was 5 Sky Striker, then 3 Endymion Pendulum, I think 3 Trickstar, and then we had 5 other one-of decks in that top 32 breakdown as well. Now, one interesting thing that stands out to me here is the fact that Thunder Dragon is not in here. If there is, there might be one in that other category, but I just saw other as other, so I'm pretty much going strictly off of that. I think it's a little bit interesting because Thunder Dragons had this huge resurgence in popularity, and then in one of the biggest tournaments of the year, especially for South America, it just immediately fell off. Now, there are a couple reasons for this. I mean, potential reasons, I should say. First off is the fact that, you know, maybe the players prepared for Thunder Dragon to be in attendance and just adjusted their strategies accordingly. We've talked about this previously, that with decks like Salamangreat and Sky Striker, which are these control decks, that they can tutor their deck to pretty much handle whatever the meta is throwing at them, just depending on what the best decks are. And so maybe the players did prepare for it. But there is a second factor here, and this really kind of applies to Central America and South America exclusively, and that is the price point. I mean, Danger Thunder Dragon is an extremely expensive deck. It's probably the most expensive deck of the tier 1 contenders, and the thing is, price does play a very significant role when it comes to the Central American and South American tournaments. I'm not saying that to be mean, it just is a thing that people from these regions have told me, so it is something I want to make sure you guys are aware of. So just because you don't see Danger Thunder on this top 32 breakdown, by no means is it a deck that is irrelevant. It could just be region specific to the fact that there is a price barrier there, or it could just, again, could be the fact that people did over prepare for it and just managed to take it out in the Swiss rounds. But regardless, Salamangreat did end up taking first place, Orcust ended up getting second, and again, this kind of just reinforces that Salamangreat is really the deck to beat this format. I mean, it's had the highest overall representation, it gets like the highest representation in Top Cut, and then it's been winning a majority of these large tournaments in addition to all of that. So you guys got to definitely prepare for your Salamangreat matchup for sure, otherwise that could be your ultimate demise. Now next up, I want to cover the Israeli National. Now the Israeli National had only about 120 participants, so it was rather small, so keep that in mind. It was kind of like about the size of like a regional here in the US. However, we actually have some data from the top 32, which sometimes we don't even get that, so I figured it was worth discussing for a little bit. Starting off with 10 of the top 32 slots going to Salamangreat, so again, just further proving that Salamangreat is the deck to beat this format. That was followed by 5 Sky Striker, then I believe it was 4 Orcust, 4 True Draco, which is interesting because True Draco hasn't really seen too much in the top cut tier as of late. Then we have 4 Altergeist, then there was 1 of each Dino Shadal, Necros, Crusadia, as well as Pendulum. So again, this is kind of like a small representation, at least for the Israeli region. I think it's cool that we did get this breakdown, but again, we still have the fact that we have the top decks pretty much dominating as we would expect. Altergeist taking 4 of the top 32, again, is just kind of proving my point on my competitive tier list video that I made not too long ago, that this is definitely a tier 2 contender and something you should prepare for as well. And kind of interesting that Danger Thunder was also not in this top 32 as well. Again, it was a smaller event, so that's not really like too big of a deal, but again, just something to keep your eye on. Now, one small national I wanted to quickly touch on was the Slovenian National. There wasn't a lot of information about this, but one thing that caught my eye about this was that there was a Paleozoic deck that made the top 4. Now, I know it's a national, and a WCQ and a national are two completely different things, but the fact that a Paleozoic deck managed to make it all the way to the top 4 of a national when decks like Sky Striker, Salamangreat, Orcust, and Danger Thunder are the top decks to beat, I found was rather interesting. If you guys remember on my competitive tier list video that I made last week, I mentioned Paleozoic being a rogue contender and possibly a sleeper deck going into this format, so that kind of just goes to prove that it has a chance. Like, the fact that it actually made it that far shows that there's potential. By all means, it doesn't mean it's like a completely viable strategy, but I thought it was just some good food for thought. And lastly, I wanted to wrap this video up with the Italian National. Now again, this is one of the largest nationals we've had of the entire year, and we actually have a top 64 breakdown for this event. And once again, it should come as no surprise, Salamangreat is taking up 26 of the top 64 slots in this top cut. Almost half of the representation in top cut was allocated to Salamangreat. That is just insane, because then when you look at it by comparison to the other decks, Orcust was in second with like 10, I think, and then also Sky Striker had 10 as well, and then I believe there was 8 Danger Thunder Dragon. So for all you guys questioning where Danger Thunder Dragon has been, there was a pretty significant amount, I believe 12.5% of this top cut breakdown at the Italian National. I think the Italian National probably has a lot more competitive clout to it than some of these other nationals, because there are some incredibly strong European players in Italy, so I think seeing this deck pop up here should really not be a surprise. There was also a couple random decks that were in there as well. I think there was like a Luna Light they mentioned, a Pendulum, a Prank Kids, but again, those kind of all tapered off by the time we got to the winner, which ended up once again being Salamangreat, going up against Orcust in the final match. So that was very similar to the South American WCQ, but again, Salamangreat taking another victory under its belt. And the reason I wanted to save the Italian National for last was because there was actually kind of an interesting tech card that I wanted to briefly touch on for the deck, and that is Clock Lizard. Now, Clock Lizard is a card that I believe came out of Savage Strike, and it basically is a card that is perfectly suited for the Salamangreat strategy. So basically, Clock Lizard is a way that if your Violet Chimera, when you're trying to OTK your opponent, gets Effect Veilered, you can make the Clock Lizard, and then you can use Clock Lizard's effect to be able to re-summon out Violet Chimera, and then because you have the Clock Lizard, you can go ahead and basically boost your Violet Chimera again, and basically dodge Effect Veiler, because Effect Veiler is one of the most prominent hand traps in the format, giving you kind of like a second way to just go ahead and OTK your opponent if they have any way to interrupt the Violet Chimera at any point before, you know, you have to go out of your main phase. So this is a very interesting card, and this might be the spice that Salamangreat wants to start including going into the rest of the WCQ format. Will it become standard? I really don't know, but I thought it was a very just ingenious card to kind of play around one of the biggest disruptors of the current format. So Salamangreat players, you might want to take note, but for everyone else playing a different strategy, planning to combat Salamangreat, just keep in mind that this card might be lurking in the Salamangreat extra decks. There's still plenty of other coverage to come, especially with the North American WCQ coming this weekend. Like I said, I will be attending, and I'm going to try to bring you guys as much coverage from that event as possible. I'm going to bring you guys the deck profiles. I'm going to have some fun and do some videos since everyone's going to be there. And if you're there, be sure to say hi. I'll definitely have my Sharpies, and I'll be able to sign stuff for you guys, take pictures, do all that fun stuff, as I always do when I travel to events. So guys, that's going to do it for this meta analysis. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video helpful, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member, because just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.